Well, we're here tonight to talk to somebody who's stepping up into one of the most visible spots, if not the most visible spot, in town politics in Milford. Why don't we start with an introduction?
Thank you for having me, Al. My name's Kingkade. I'm a candidate for Selectman. The election's just a couple weeks away now, or 3 weeks away. I served the town in a number of capacities over the years. Served 9 years on the school committee, a year as chairman, which was a great privilege to be able to serve. I served as a commissioner on the Milford Housing Authority. Before that, I started while I was still in college as a town meeting member. And for the last 2 years, I've been serving on the finance committee. So I think I have a pretty good range of experience over the last 16, 17 years of serving the town. And I think, and I hope that the voters will give me a chance to make the next step into being our next selectman.
So the first question I always ask, I'm from Milford, Willie, why should I vote for you?
No, I love that question, and you certainly ask every candidate that question, so I did know that one was coming. Again, I think experience counts for a lot. For almost half my life, I've served in one capacity or another on a board or a committee in the town of Milford. Again, the school committee I have to always speak the most about. Again, it's about 60, or I'll just say more than half the town budget. So that gives you a lot of experience on the budget side of things. Also, I dealt with every one of the contracts at one point throughout my career on the school committee. Personnel matters and some pretty serious issues that came up over those 9 years. So I have a lot of experience there. Let's see, I think, you know, even more than that is I love this town. I love the fact that I was born here. I love the fact that I grew up here. I'm proud that after graduating college, I wanted to come back here, start working, and now my wife Lisa and I are lucky enough to raise our son Caleb here. And I think that speaks volumes that, you know, even when my wife and I met, and she's not from Milford, but when she came here and we met when she moved here and she became acclimated with the community, she was just drawn in immediately. Because we have a town of great people, and I don't know, I'm just really excited, and I really hope I get the opportunity.
I always
to serve.
love the comment, Lisa's not from Milford. Could anybody be more from Milford?
I know. Well, even it's funny how, you know, we met on a blind date, and you know. So
she took pity on you.
Yeah. Well, luckily she didn't get to see a picture of me first or anything like that, but she was doing some work for Tom O'Loughlin, the chief of police, and up at the courthouse. She speaks Portuguese and Spanish, so she was translating, and she was actually a domestic abuse counselor. So when a couple of the police officers, you know, said, you gotta meet Will, and Will, you have to meet Lisa. We put it off for a long time, but then it was love at first sight, at least on my, you know, on my side. And I know 100% Portuguese girl. I mean, it was. People think she's from here, and I just moved in. So
yeah, so Tom said, we got this kid wants a social climb, wants to be with a Portuguese girl. Would you take pity on him?
But it's been 12 years now, so we're coming up on our 10th anniversary.
Congratulations.
So, and Caleb, obviously the light of our life, 6 years old, and now he's kind of mixed up in all this, and he's a little confused, though, because I'm... you know, he thought it was so big when I got named the mayor of Prospect Heights, which is probably one of the proudest things that a lot of good guys in town were able to make possible for me. So now he says, you know, Dad, you're the mayor, but you're going to be a selectman. So we'll explain that to him in a couple of years.
Yeah, sorry, Caleb, you get a lot more say, but you don't get a cool hat.
No, that's right. He still wears my top hat.
Yeah. You know, as you look, Milford is special, and we'll get into some of that, but if you were to look at the three biggest challenges that you think you'd have as a selectman, what would they be?
I think the number one has to be, and I'm going to stay as consistent as I can, has to be budget. Milford's in great shape. People know that. I think because of the work of our finance committee members over the years, I I'm a very small part of that. Just over the last couple of years, a lot of you folks have been serving for years and years and have really kept us on the straight and narrow.
That just means we're old.
No, there's a real level of respect, I think. Even if town meeting, on the few times they've even historically disagreed with you guys, or even when there's a dialogue between the selectmen and the finance committee, however the process works and develops, the bottom line is it works, and Milford's in really great shape. But we always want to stay in that position, so I think that's why we continue to take such a conservative approach to things. We have committees and boards run scenarios, and state aid comes in higher, like it's coming in now, hopefully. The governor's budget did anyway. But we still have them run scenarios if that's not the case. So we're always prepared, and if there's extra and there's more, you guys do a great job of saying there's more. But we don't spend money just because we have it. And I don't think that's the fate of other towns around us and throughout the Commonwealth. So I'm very proud of that. So that's probably always will be our number one issue.
But you can't shy away from the fact that over these last years, you've had a big part in helping that vision, keeping the finance committee on the straight and narrow.
Well, I'd like to think so. I think, again, because of how we debate and talk, and that's why I'm so happy. Like, my first meeting on the finance committee was the first time cameras were introduced. Now, coming 9 years off at the school committee, I was used to everything I said being on a camera. So when the cameras came on, I think it's over the last couple of years, it's even given people another whole insight on how actually the budget progresses. Because I think a lot of people see it go to town meeting, and a lot of things, most things at town meeting by the time they get there aren't controversial anymore. There seems to be a couple of things that are controversial maybe every year.
But that's the poll we take. What non-essential article will take up an hour? Because all the big ones, we've been beating up each other for 5 months.
Yeah. But I think that's where those cameras, I think, honestly have helped over the last couple of years, because I think people honestly thought, why is this, 300 people at town meeting are not a rubber stamp. They're people that have been involved with the process, are paying close attention, are watching these, are visiting the meetings, serve on other committees throughout town. So I think that all kind of forms this circle of this process that just works. And we've had knockdown dragouts, but the end result is we build our schools, we fix our buildings, we build new buildings, we maintain them now, and we still have money in the bank. We're not taxing to the levy limit. I mean, it's just, the list goes on, and I think, when you and I kind of have the inside, scoop on a lot of this stuff because we're actively involved. But I mean, we could keep bragging about things like this because it's been done, and it's been done year after year. So budget's huge. I think there's a few issues. I'll try to keep it down to the top three. I think right now I have to stand by the fact that I can't wait to get a shovel in the ground and see the Woodland project begin. Again, a lot of us that have been involved, never mind all the parents that have seen their kids go through that school over the last decade and a half, knows that not only is it way too small, it's in real rough shape. We've been able to keep the kids dry and warm and things of that nature that are most important, we're using the stage, we're using closets, we're using corners of hallways.
Lisa's taking a lot of Band-Aids to work.
Yes.
We have a hole, put the Band-Aid.
She loves it. She comes from I think she could do her job in a shoebox and be quite happy. Because a building doesn't make the education, but it certainly helps. It's just part of the big picture. And again, whether it's town meeting members, finance committee members, school committee members throughout my tenure and beyond have been waiting and working and signing pledges to the state saying that this is what we still want to do. So I think that's very exciting to see, and hopefully that, you never know what you're going to find when you start digging that hole. But I think we're more prepared ever. And again, luckily the finance committee, far before I ever joined the team, knew the importance of putting this money away so that there is never a talk of an override or a debt exclusion to build a school. I mean,
Yeah, we'll talk about those profanity-laden sentences later, but no, but you think about it, we've been very fortunate that town meeting saw the vision, agreed with the vision. Because I remember when the whole Woodland School came up, it's one of the few times I ever got in front of town meeting.
Yep.
Said, you know, for many years, we've been talking about putting money away in the stabilization because the school's coming. School's coming.
Yep.
Well, it's here,
It certainly is.
and we're ready.
Yep.
And that's really, you know, kudos to the town meeting members, because that took a lot of intestinal fortitude to fight off the fact that you're putting away $500,000 every year for a school that is a decade away.
Yep. No, and there's a trust factor, but again, I think between the boards of selectmen and the finance committees, a trust exists, and it took years to get there. You know, Milford people don't take getting burnt too kindly to. So luckily, it didn't happen, because I think as soon as you break that bond or you break that trust, it's hard to get back. It sounds very cliche-ish, but
it's a deep hole to dig out of.
it certainly is. So we actually just, I mean, again, preparing a decade in advance. School committee members coming before town meeting, finance committee members, town meeting members standing up saying, we're going to do this, we promise, trust us, we're going to keep putting money away. Because again, putting that $500,000, $1 million away, you're obviously not doing other things with that money.
Sure. So, budget, Woodland, there's two.
Yep,
You
the
can
third
have four
thing,
if you need
can
it.
we have
Yeah.
four? Well, I'm gonna talk about I got to talk about the middle school east building too, and not because of my putting on my former school committee hat, but now that's right downtown, and I think whatever we do with that building is going to affect that neighborhood and Main Street. I look at when the senior center was built, considering what it was to what is built there now, and now we have a very successful barber shop there. Those guys do a great job at Central Barber Shop. We have Paul Brazza's Sports Center. We have Cafe Sorrento. We go up Central Street. I mean, Nancy Manning's cutting her hair and all the customers there. I mean, that whole area
Spreads.
it spreads. And that was part of that little economic development down at that neighborhood. So I look at Middle School East building, and I'm a little nervous. I know the committee's going to do a great job, and there's good people on there, and Steve Treadle's chairing it, and I have a lot of faith in that. And I'm very interested in what their recommendations are going to be. But I know it was in the paper, a couple months back, that a correctional school was looking at that building. I don't think a correctional school would do the town of Milford as a whole any good. Put it on Main Street, because I'm not sure what that means, but it certainly doesn't sound anything I want to be a part of. And here we are building an entirely new youth center at the Armory that's a block away. I'm sorry, half a block across the basketball court. We want our youth center near a correctional school? I don't think so. So if there's anything I'm against, it'll be that, and I'll be out there with a sign and whatever else it takes to make sure that doesn't happen. But I am very interested in what can be. I'm one of the many too that I don't want to lose that gymnasium. If we can keep some type of public-private, municipal type of partnership there, which again, that's going to have to be worked out because then there's costs there. So I'd like to see something come in, whether it's Quinsigamond Community College or another school, Bay Path, whatever it is, another community college, or Northeastern who wants to use classrooms and things like that. I don't think we should have a view of that building as saying it has to be, a one-purpose building. I think we could still hold on to the gymnasium. In the front, I was talking to John Tian about this. There's a place in Cambridge called the Work Bar. Has nothing to do with alcoholic beverages. It's people go in and just rent space. So if you're a lawyer in town, but you don't need a whole building on your own or anything else, but you want a space and use a conference room, you join the bar, you need to be a bar advocate, you need conference room space. So there's people that run a conference room space. There's a .com or a startup. People that could work out of home can now
we've
share
had
space.
the essence of an incubator, because when we first picked up Unison, everybody was on the West Coast. I went down to, I think it was called Corporate Connections, across from Truffles. And they had a central office where, back then I paid $700 a month for a room, which seemed like a lot for a room, but I got use of the conference room, I got use of a receptionist, I got use of the photocopier, I got use of, back then, fax. probably carrier pigeon that a lot of people would. But we had that environment that
Yep.
if you wanted to get started,
Mm-hmm.
there was a place where you could rent a room
Yep.
and yet have access
Yep.
to a much bigger area when you needed it.
You got it. No, and I think we see more and more of that. And also something that, I certainly haven't spoken to anyone at community use about it, but I'd love to see community use that does a great job. And Len Marcone's staff in a building, parents can walk in and out of without having necessarily the security that we need at the schools. To go in and then obviously, and let them run the gym as well. I mean, he runs all of
He runs it anyway.
He runs all of the public buildings anyway, and all of the school buildings and things of that nature. So I think even something like that would,
Well, I have had yet to hear anybody say that we should give up the gym.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like it's a nice gym.
Mm-hmm.
We desperately need gyms for our kids. I've not heard anybody say we should downgrade the security at Milford High School,
absolutely.
To let people go visit. I mean, Lenny's a victim of his own success.
Mm-hmm.
Between him and Jen,
Yep.
they're doing such a great job, people want to talk to him.
Yeah, that's it. They do so much. Yep.
And legitimately, they have to go through security if you want to talk to them during the day when our children
Yep.
are there. So, having them down there sure seems like a good idea. I don't know how practical it is yet.
Yep. No, and again, the parking, everything's going to have to be addressed and looked at. But again, it's something that's right on Main Street. And I mean, part of me, in theory, would rather say, geez, let's find a home. Let's find something for that building that's going to be put on the tax rolls. I mean, we'd rather be making money than
Yes.
spending it. But again, where it is, it's locked between 3 streets, the church in the background.
You're not
I
gonna-
don't want someone to come with a bulldozer and then build something that's going to be more of a strain on our neighborhood or on Main Street.
But that would be almost the only way I can envision retail there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a lot of parking.
No, oh no, it would have to come down.
So putting something in there that requires a lot of parking just isn't feasible.
Nope.
But what do you think people have talked about? Okay, the high school was built, we started in '74. We haven't added to the high school in 40-odd years.
Nope.
Central office. I mean, would you be against moving central office down there if it made sense?
Well, I guess I would want to, I'd want to be open to the argument or the debate. In a lot of ways, I think in a lot of towns they have separate administration buildings and they're closer to town hall and things of that nature. They feel more part of town government. But there's also something very positive about your superintendent walking out of his office and
Dealing with his
at our-
customers.
Yep, and being at our flagship school. I mean, I remember Mr. Cullen walking our halls. I saw him every day at lunch.
Right.
And, I one out of the many kids. I certainly didn't speak to him every day, but I knew he was there. I knew who he was. He was visible. And I think, not that that's a problem. I mean, Bob's about as visible as you can be, regardless of the building he's in. But I think there's just something very positive about that, especially at the high school. I mean, generally, as far as I can tell, and I've been off the school committee now for, I think, about 4 years, I don't think they're short on space. So, I'm not sure if it's a necessity or not, but I'd like to hear what the superintendent. I have to remember, I'm running for selectman. I'm not running for school committee again, but this, the schools are a huge part and a majority of our
Well,
town
but they're
government. So
61% of our expense load. So anything we do in the schools affects
absolutely.
everybody. But even moving parts of town hall over.
Yeah, which again, I've had this conversation with the Board of Health members. I mean, you walk into their office, they have an extremely busy office, planning and engineering, inspections. I mean, these offices are small, they're cramped, just storage for files and records and things of that nature. I mean, we outgrew town hall as soon as it was done being, remodeled. So I think there's even some, taking advantage of the vicinity right across the street.
Okay, politically incorrect question number 1, but
I
I'm
love
going to
it.
ask you.
I love politically incorrect
People are worried about the dynamic on the selectmen's floor.
Oh, okay.
That you've had somebody there for 33 years, which, I mean, everybody looked at Dino as the one that got along
Yep.
and did everything to make sure that everything was as smooth as he could.
Yep.
How do you see yourself affecting the Board of Selectmen?
Well, I think, again, I have a track record. I think it's going to be a different experience to have two other colleagues rather than 6 others like I did on the school committee for so many years. But still, everyone is independently elected. Never mind, they have their own personalities, egos, never mind thought processes and things like that. And everyone has different goals. But I think if anything is probably a wrong first impression of me is I think for as open-minded as I am, and I think that's fair to say that I'm a very open-minded person, but I think that sometimes can come across as weak, quite honestly.
I've never known you as weak on the FinCom. Somehow, the voice across the table never came across as squeaky and indecisive. I'm sorry. I must have missed the weak Willie part.
And I appreciate that, but I've actually, I don't say that just for the point of saying it. I say that because people have said to me, well, Willie, are you going to be able to, debate and deal with these folks and stuff like that? And I just tell people, I have a track record, and I've been doing it for 15 years. So I think my dynamic is...
Again, I think of 2 people that you got to deal with strong personalities.
Yep.
When I look at the 15 on the FinCom,
Yep.
there's a couple strong personalities that you've had to deal with.
Oh, no question. No, and that's what I think that it's not a challenge for me. I think that I try to sit and listen before I do a lot of speaking. And I process a lot. And sometimes it's not like an instantaneous reaction. But I think my dynamic on the board is going to be open-minded towards my colleagues. But I'm not there for them. I'm not there for Bill, and I'm not there for Brian. I'm there for you and your family and my family and people that are interested in just government doing what it's supposed to do. And I'm going to be there listening to my audience, who's hopefully sitting before me advocating for something at the Board of Selectmen, department heads, taxpayers, people watching at home.
All 6 of them.
Yes. No, you have more than that. A lot more. That's who I'm here for. I know I've actually, that's why I smirked when you asked the question, I've heard some dynamics, well, you and Bill are friends, you and Brian maybe aren't as friendly, because we obviously have a track record. I ran for Selectman when he was up.
Personally, I really don't care who you're friends with, as long as you're friends with Milford.
You got it. And again, it's still a question of, on the school committee, I have a track record. That's why I'm very comfortable talking about this, I sat next to 2 of my neighbors, literally on the same street.
Again, weak personalities, right?
Oh, yeah. And, again, we came in, we listened. Sometimes we agreed, sometimes we didn't. But you know what? For the most part, no matter who I served with, we walked out. And
somehow we still went into that little back area of your backyard, and Pat was still there even when you didn't agree with him.
Yep.
And we still could sit back there and
Absolutely.
enjoy.
And that's how I hope to move forward. Now, I will tell you that it depends on your personality, because a lot of people can't separate the two, and that's okay. But even all the years, 9 years on the school committee, I dealt with very little of that. You explain where you're coming from, they explain where they're coming from, and sometimes you just agree that, all our goals seem to be the same. Everyone who serves in Milford, really, the goals always seem to be the same. It's just the path to get there.
So now your first question, or your first challenge, you thought would be budget.
Mm-hmm.
If we go through politically incorrect question number 2.
Okay.
To levy or not to levy?
I would say not to levy. Simply because there's a history there, and we don't need to. And again, that's a simple, that's a simple answer, but simple's good when it works. And we set these scenarios going to the levy limit, and then we go back and give $1 million or more. I think right now, anyway, the plan is 1.8 towards the tax rate. And I think, again, we're stopping government from growing more than it needs to grow. I do think, we have to take very seriously taking care of taking care of the people that work for us. I think whether you're a town or whether you're a company, if you have good employees, you need to take care of them. They need to feel like you're, taking care of them. That doesn't always mean something as simple as salary, but, we have a few contracts coming up, negotiations, things are going to be happening, and it's just that time of the cycle. But there's no reason to borrow to the levy limit when you don't have to. And again, it's been a dozen years now that, you know,
Seems like 11 years in a row, we've had a little few extra shekels
Yeah.
at the end of the year in free cash.
and I think if nothing else, never mind is it showing respect and appreciation to the taxpayer, but I mean, it's just, you know, that's something that, again, isn't being done elsewhere. Is Milford perfect? I'm sure it's not. But again, you know, I certainly don't think very negatively of a place I've chose to raise my child in. Again, we're in a great town. We have our challenges, and but we are not picking the pockets of our taxpayers.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you said is we're taking care of what we need. Want is always something that is insatiable. You know, that's just a big hole that you could pour enough money in thinking you'd fill it, you never would.
Yeah. Well, I just think we've done so many things. I mean, going back through history, I mean, we have 3 exits off of 495. We have Granite Park. We have three public pools in the town of Milford. State, town, school. I just, you know, there's not much we're going without. Our kids are graduating and going to good schools if they choose to. We just, I know I'm bragging, but there's a lot to be proud of.
And realistically, if we had to, I don't think anybody in the FinCom would say, if something happened and we couldn't take care of it, and we had to borrow to the levy limit, I think we would.
Absolutely.
But
No, I think we definitely would if we needed to. Because again, there's still a very big difference to, I think, most of us, borrowing to the levy limit, and then those profanity
Yes.
words that override in debt exclusion. Again, and when those have come up and when people have brought those up, I think for the most part they've been dismissed rather quickly. But also, how can you have that conversation when you're not even borrowing up to the levy limit? We're not even taxing people in Milford to the amount we are able to. So I think that speaks volumes.
And we have a surplus at the end of the year.
Yep, every year.
And I'll challenge somebody to say, Willie, think of one thing that we need to do for the town, need, that we haven't funded.
There isn't one.
Exactly.
Sometimes we wait, but we've never waited for something that was catastrophically needed.
If your
or,
car broke down and you couldn't get to work, and there's no repairing it, you need to buy a new car.
Absolutely.
If the car is a little old and it would be nice to have a shiny new car, that's a want.
Yep.
And I haven't seen any needs that we've not dealt with.
You know why I like the car analogy? Lisa and I have 2 cars. Obviously, today you need them. I gave her my 2008 Honda because it's bigger and it's safer, and I don't want Caleb driving in her little car that we still have, that she had when we met. Toyota Corolla 2002, I look ridiculous driving it. I drive that thing every day to the train station because there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and it only has 97,000 miles on it, and it's 12 years old. So, and I'm not cheap about a lot of things, but I will tell you something, that when that car needs to be replaced, I'll replace it. And that's how I think of even the taxpayers' dollars. I'm not going to spend it any differently than I spend my own. We have a beautiful home. We have a lot of nice things. We're very lucky. But I don't just go buy a new car because it's time. And I think and I just wanted to jump in with that because, if anything, for people who don't know me well and they're taking a chance if they're going to vote for me, and rolling the dice and saying, is this the guy that I want to, invest my vote in, that I wanted to, let that be known, because I really do take very seriously other people's money as much as I take my own.
So now we're rolling into a whole series of contract negotiations
Yes.
with town employees. How would you approach them?
Well, as far as I know, because of just where I came from with my experience on the school committee, I think everything at the town level is more collective bargaining. I would like to at least see or hear why there isn't more collaborative bargaining.
Help people understand the difference.
Sure. Collective bargaining, the way it worked prior to when I was on the school committee, and it wasn't just my idea. We actually voted as a group to go into collaborative bargaining. Collective bargaining, people are in different rooms, and
The Dukes go up.
who's ever the mediator or acting as the negotiator is going between the two rooms or meeting with those two groups on different days at different locations and passing along the information and negotiating. In my first term, when I negotiated the teacher's contract, we actually sat in the same room. So the school committee members that could negotiate, the teachers on the negotiation team, a third-party mediator, a flip board every negotiation scheduled meeting. Someone got chosen to take the notes, someone got chosen, we'd go in order, we'd speak. You chose all the topics that you were gonna talk about ahead of time. There was no criticizing, oh, well, that's crazy, you're not gonna get that. No, we list all the topics down, and then throughout our scheduled meetings, however many it takes, you address those issues, and you come to either a consensus, or you can't, and you set it aside, because at the end, there were 3 issues that we were still debating after handling 57 issues. But I like being in the same room. Why are we acting like strangers? The people I was negotiating with were my former teachers. I remember Ronnie Lonigan sitting across the office. She wrote my letters of recommendation to school when I went to get certified as a teacher. These are people I had respect for. It doesn't mean we have to agree with everything each other says, but there was a level of respect. And I like that. And I don't know that that's not happening, but I just know that I'm more of a supporter because I experienced it of collaborative bargaining. So, I mean, if one member of the Board of Selectmen said, I'll take the police department, then they go do the police department. But they're present, they're there. I'll take the fire department or highway or whatever it is that the 2 or 3 big ones that maybe the selectmen would be willing to get involved with. It might be another night out through, X amount of weeks or months or depending on how they go. But I think it's that important. I also think it sends a message to our town employees that we're here, we're listening, we're talking face to face. And even if, you kind of, even upset one another on occasion if the disagreement gets too much, it still sends, I think, a message that you're there, you're part of the process. You're not just waiting for someone to deliver the message back to you. I don't want to compare it to playing operator, but things can get lost in translation. I know if I'm in the room and I'm part of the discussion, it's on me whether I grasped everything or I missed something.
Well, it's a different dynamic, because when I hear about collective bargaining, it feels like, okay, Dukes are up,
Yep.
2 different groups fighting, yet,
Labor management.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's confrontational, it must be. Yet, it doesn't seem to work that way in Milford.
No, and I don't think it does. I think it would be more of a topic of conversation. It's just when negotiations come up, that's what I think of. That I guess as a selectman, and again, if my colleagues don't support it, then maybe that'll be one of the votes I lose right off the bat. But I'm certainly willing to be a bigger part of the process.
Well, I mean, think about, I always kid Scotty about tenderizing.
Yes.
At the beginning of the budget cycle, he talks about how much they really need.
Yep.
And then you look across, say, seriously? And he says, wow.
Yeah.
The Pat Holland, when he came in that year,
Yep.
and they needed 800,000 above what we had set as guidelines.
Yes.
Turns out 600 was sped, which we know they can't control. You can get a few kids come in, and
That changes everything.
and then the whole debate was over 200 some. And I remember laughing, saying, Pat, 100 and? And I mean, it's kind of a joke, but it wasn't, because it was the way we seemed to approach it.
No, and it was funny to just watch you two interact, but at the same time, it wasn't a joke because you guys negotiated that and figured it all out in a
30 whole
30-minute.
second,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was gonna say in a 30-minute meeting, I think you took up a minute and a half.
Right.
Went back, and
And at the end of the day, the school committee knew they would come back with something. And I remember when he walked in officially, I said, 100 and he says, I can't talk to you. I said, Pat? He goes, 104. Okay. So somewhere in a $40 million budget,
Yep.
they found 100 grand.
yes,
And in our $50 million budget, we found an extra 100.
yes,
We took care of the kids, we took care of everything, and
yeah.
we didn't need any newspaper lines or, big fights over it. It was,
No.
it is what it is.
No, and again, again, something different from probably, and I don't know, probably how other towns do it, because even when I first joined the school committee, how surprised I was when I was meeting with the FinCom, that here's your school budget. We'll cover the health insurance for all the teachers and the staff and the faculty. You know, we'll pay for the kids going out of district. You get to keep the money for the money coming in. Special education, we know you can't control it. We'll take that on. You know, it's amazing, you know, how much more, again, the town of Milford is doing for their schools. And I think it's been that way for so long, it's very easy to take for granted.
Yeah.
But that budget would take serious hits if we all of a sudden held them accountable for the kids that go to Blackstone Valley, the kids that go here, the kids that go here, all the money that's going out. And
Well, you know, I mean, we come under some criticism because they say kids move here, or families move here with special needs kids because the program from Jen Walsh and crew is so strong. And I sit there and I shake my head saying, you know, if the worst thing we're ever accused of
Yep.
is we took care of a couple kids that aren't in our town on the way to making sure that our kids are taken care of,
Yep.
I probably can live with that criticism
Yep.
the day I'm in front of the pearly gates. You know, that doesn't seem like a bad thing that you helped some other kids while you were taking care of your own.
Yep. No, there's no question. And you obviously, you know, you always kind of hit a soft spot with that because, again, Jen Walsh, who's terrific, I'm proud. Her and Jose Costa are the co-chairs of my committee. Two great human beings. I'm very proud of that, so I have to throw that out there. You know, Lisa and I, well, years ago we got involved with FAMASA, Friends of Milford Area Special Athletes, and now Lisa and I are both on the board. Something I'm also very proud of. You know, and ironic, I remember going to their very first fundraiser 15 years ago, if not longer, we were in the basement of New England Steakhouse. Now we've been in Mendon so long, and now we're at the Portuguese
Growing
Club
out of
this year
that.
because we grew out of that. Made 300-400 people, it's amazing. We raise tons of money, we take great care of our kids. And after, you know, being involved with that board for 5 or 6 years, Lisa and I get a phone call and say, Lisa, your baby has Down syndrome. Let's, you know, of course we were upset to first hear that. You're counting fingers and toes no matter what. You think every baby's perfect. And to be honest with you, he ended up being just perfect. But it's just ironic that we were involved like we were, and then we get that call. And I said, okay, I'm gonna call Children's Hospital and find out who I need to speak to. Lee, you call Jen Walsh, she'll find us some parents with kids with Down syndrome and everything's gonna be all right. And you know what? It was.
But you know, when we think of Caleb, I think of Caleb swimming in the Milford pool
Yep.
with Lisa hovering over him.
Well, she can't swim.
No, she's hovering over, and Caleb's like, I find Lexi.
Yep.
You know, it's like, Mom, go away.
Yep.
You know, and in he went, and he's swimming like a fish.
Oh yeah.
And then I think of him at my daughter's wedding, walking down his little tux.
Yep.
You sit there and say, if this is the result of a strong family and a strong community,
Yep.
we can't be doing too bad by our kids.
No, that's for sure. And I've heard that as well, and people have said that to me before they even know my home situation. Especially, oh, geez, you know, Milford's we hear the place to go, and because you know you guys are so good, especially you know people are moving there just for that. Okay, I've never actually experienced that. Hopefully some families have, but I think that it definitely speaks volumes again on a whole different level of the good things that go on in this town.
When we look at infrastructure, IT keeps coming up.
Oh yeah.
Comments?
Oh yeah, plenty. That was probably one of the biggest of my, I guess, one of the biggest eye-opening experiences I had when I joined the FinCom. Because, again, getting that inside look at every department going on and seeing what you guys have been trying to do, along with, you know, in cooperation with the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator and everything, to actually build an IT department. Okay, I knew we didn't have an IT department. The town did whatever they did, and in the schools we were, you know, relied on third-party companies as well as internal staff and teachers. And quite honestly, we weren't doing a good job with it. But the fact that we just had absolutely no plan, no department, no line item budget.
No vision at all.
Absolutely.
Forget the plan. There wasn't even a vision as to where should we be going. Never mind how we're going to get there.
And over the last couple of years, there's also been a couple of glitches that have, again, kind of made this, something that we really need to address. I mean, I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago when there was a mistake made with the payroll. The town employees, or at least the school was affected by it, and the initial response was, well, we'll fix it in 2 weeks when they get their next paycheck. Excuse me? They already earned this paycheck. This needs to be fixed. Or start handwriting checks. And it was addressed, and it was, and Kelly Capisi and her staff did a great job. I think they worked the whole weekend, got everything done, got everything fixed, and fixed everyone's payroll. I mean, there's a lot of things that can. I
can just see going to the bank saying, I'll pay my mortgage in 2 weeks when they fix my paycheck.
Yep.
Oh, that would go over well.
There's absolutely, and and again, it's no one's business what somebody's finances are, but it's also not our business to assume that someone's going to be
okay without a pay
for 2 weeks without a paycheck. To me, that was another experience where we were like, this is something of IT with communication going between the school and the town that, this needs to be addressed. It's not just the things that we want to get to with people bringing their own devices in town or school and having Wi-Fi everywhere, even though we should. All of these things that, we should be seeing, but you just said it, there wasn't even a vision. So now I think people are trying, and I don't think we've, even at this point, seen really any big results yet. And I guess time's going to tell, but I certainly hope that we're not going through more IT directors. Just in the last few years, 3, I think at least 3. Something's got to be done, and I know that's a generic statement, but enough's enough. I deal with a lot of. I'm certainly not an expert, but I deal with a lot of technology at work. A lot of proprietary programs, but at least I can walk into my office suite with a laptop and get a signal, check my email, make sure my staff is paid, and things of that nature. And that's something that we need to. Those are the things we should be taking for granted.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, the FinCom had to take responsibility for, because in a way, we set people up to fail. You got a $90 million. I mean, if you said company. And you say, how many IT people do you have? Well, we got Richie part-time when he's not doing something else up at the high school. And you're like, excuse me? Well, we kind of farm out this. When we hired a single IT person, how are you going to support hundreds of people? Just the chair to keyboard interface issues.
Yep.
People making normal human mistakes could keep
Absolutely.
more than one person busy. So I think now the FinCom's stepping up saying, okay,
Yep.
you need a visionary, and then you need some worker bees,
Yep.
people who actually do the work.
Yep.
That at least gives them a fair chance. Question will be, as selectmen, will you support a spending list without a plan?
Again, I want to pause for a second so people are thinking I'm shooting from the hip, but no. I think you need a plan, a model, just like anything else. And again, it doesn't have to be, and I don't want to be any more bureaucratic about the process or anything else, because sometimes government can't get out of its own way. We know that. But this isn't a new topic of conversation. The Finance Committee should have had a plan and answers. I don't know how much longer the Board of Selectmen, even currently, until hopefully I'm on board too, is going to keep taking the answers as they're coming. We're getting it, we're thinking about it, we have it, but it's here. People need to know the plan, because individuals can come and go. They can get better opportunities, their health can decline, they can't come to work, whatever it is. The mission needs to move forward.
Well, we need to know where we're going. Because we're talking, I mean, this year, we have a draft, because that's all it is at this point. The FinCom hasn't voted on it. But a draft that includes $300,000 as an initial investment. That's a lot of money.
It certainly is.
If I don't know where I'm going with it. So.
Well, and you brought up again, I go back to the schools, you brought up 10 years ago were going before town meeting. But we told people, for a school, that we were still planning.
Sure.
But we had plans, we had documents, we knew.
We had a vision. It's coming.
Absolutely, and how we were going to move through the schools and how middle school east was going to go offline. We had this plan, the same plan that's been in effect for this long. Yet, you know, I know you're on the subcommittee, you handle the technology certainly more than I do, but as, again, a finance committee member, I know I haven't seen anything yet, and that's pretty frustrating.
Oh, especially as a selectman, it'll report to you.
Yeah. No, and then it's my responsibility.
So now we look at other special products, projects, leaf picking up, leaf sucking machines coming up to a head. 2. Leaf pickup program. Comments?
Supportive of it. I don't utilize it myself, but I certainly know a lot of people, and you ride up my street, they got all their leaves out there, and again, and simply, I love it that it's another service that we provide within our tax base. Because again, I've said this till I'm blue in the face, and I will continue it. I will never support paying for our trash outside of the tax rate. I will never support our kids getting charged to ride a school bus to public school. And I certainly support the LEAF project, especially the way, I mean, the highway department, again, so few people. And they're taking care of this project in addition to everything else. You want compost? Go down and get it. You want salt and sand for your icy driveways and walkways? Go down to the highway barn and get it. These are those are small examples, but they're all examples of things that, you know what? You can't take for granted anywhere else
They're
around
small
us.
until you have the dang ice storm.
Yep.
And you want to get up that goat path I call a driveway.
Yeah.
You know, and you sit there and say, boy, I'm really happy that one of Scotty's guys scooped out the sand salt mix and put it out there for me as a resident.
You got it.
So I'm not paying whatever it is, $5 for the little bag. I mean, you sit there and say, come on now, let's be serious. How many of these little bags do I have to buy?
Oh, sure.
You know, but the LEAF program, you know, it is interesting because there's so many services. You know, when you talk about paying to put your child on a school bus.
Yep.
The last time I think that came up, I said, so what's next?
Yep.
Hello, my house is on fire. And Bill Toohey says, will that be Visa or MasterCard?
Yep.
Am I going to pay to roll a fire truck?
No, and I think, again, it goes to the credit of the people that have served the town of Milford, but also it goes back to what people in Milford have also come to expect. And we can talk about it. I mean, you know, have our taxes gone up? Yes. I know over the years, especially when Caleb was first born and Lisa wasn't working and she had to be home, believe me, we had a couple of times where I was like, okay, the taxes are due, so what are we going without? We eating pasta now for the next few days?
Ramen noodles.
You
is
know,
my favorite.
didn't get that bad. It wasn't like going through college again.
It was like college again.
But it, you know, there were choices to be made, and you know, you don't always advertise that. Obviously, it's very personal. But I mean, when people tell me when I'm talking to them that, you know, their taxes go up, well, is there something you can do? I said, well, I don't know if I can stop your taxes from going up without cutting all the things that we've come accustomed to, but I'll always support, as long as we can, not borrowing up to the levy limit, giving something back to the taxpayer to keep those taxes as low as you can be, and also never charging you to buy those little orange trash bags that I see as I drive to get on the train through our other 2 neighboring towns. And I don't know how much you pay for those little bags, but I see all the little bags with the town seals on them.
The little yellow designer Worcester bags were $3 a throw. Because I remember my daughter having to buy $3 little bags, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what would my trash bucket, how many of those little designer bags at $3 a throw would go in?
And then you get, again, you talk about the school buses. I mean, here we go. We want to make sure our kids can get up in the morning, have something to eat, get to school on time, so they can get an education, better themselves. And now we're going to say, oh, if you want to ride the bus, come on.
You got to buy a deluxe ticket to the school. The economy ticket, you have to walk.
Yep. So, and again, I'm glad we could joke about that because I just think that, you know, those things just don't fly.
Comes down to Bill too. He said, oh, you want a fire truck? Visa or MasterCard? You have to.
Yep. And I hope that those are floodgates that we never open.
Immigration's always an emotional subject.
Yep.
Thoughts?
Sure. I think it's an emotional subject because you're dealing with, human beings. I think that it's the issue that it is in Milford, rightfully so, because we're one of the few communities across the Commonwealth that is disproportionately affected by it. And I think, again, we're a former mill town. We have tons of housing, and people come here. People have always come here. Now, there's different problems with legal immigration and illegal immigration, but the bottom line is people keep coming here. So how do we handle that? My major issue, at least when we're talking around my dinner table, is when people are, well, I won't be as politically incorrect as I would be off camera, so I'll say irresponsible property owners. Or speculators, people that some don't even live in town anymore. And it's the same people. The reason the task force got formed, and you have the Board of Health and the building commissioner's office working hand in hand and doing in our zoning enforcement, but they also have 1,000 other things they're doing. So are we giving them the resources? And I don't mean just money, but are we giving them the resources and the support they need to make sure that they know that this is a priority? And I don't know. I hear a lot of talk, and I'm probably going to ask some of the same questions that were asked years ago when they formed this stuff when I get on, if I get on. But I think we have to go after the same problem landlords that are getting zoning violations, occupancy violations. They fix it, they get out, they get re-inspected, and 3 months later we're hearing about the same people over and over again. I'm going to be very outspoken about that
People, I think, are confused because a lot of them look at the fact we go after rooming houses as an elitist view. And I don't look at it that way, because what's the difference between 4 families that have 11 people in them, all in the aggregate, or 1 family that has 11? And I sit there and say there's a big safety difference, because a lot of the immigrants, and close to home Portuguese, came over and they had 8, 9 kids, but it was 1 kitchen.
Yes.
It was 1 central core. When you have 4 or 5 families and hot plates in rooms, to me, I'll buy Paul's argument that this is a safety issue. And if I live on the 1st floor and somebody's burning the 3rd floor, it does affect me, or next door.
Absolutely. And again, in Milford here, you have Paul as our health director and the 3 members of the Board of Health that, they've made national news, setting precedents and setting bylaws and things of that nature in this town that has gotten national coverage because of the strong position they've taken on this. Things you talked about are a public safety issue. Now we talk about the public health issues. It was in the paper again. The Board of Health has been finding funding for TB clinics and this, that, and everything. These are things we really haven't had to deal with over the last few years.
If somebody says, why are you spending money on TB clinics just to help a lot of illegal aliens? What would your answer be?
That we're not doing this necessarily for them. They're benefiting from it, there's no question, but they're keeping your children, my children, other people's children, and every other child in Milford safe, getting exposed to these things that, again, a few years ago, weren't even a worry.
Right. You put that child in a 20-kid classroom, they cough.
Yes.
Okay, who are we really doing it for? We're doing it for our kids. It's nice that we're helping others, but it's a safety issue, isn't it?
Oh, there's no question. And again, there's even, because I have, still have close connections to the schools, I'm still hearing stories that bother me. Families sleeping in shifts because there's multiple, again, different families. We're not talking about 1 family with 10 kids, because we're never gonna tell people how many children they can or cannot have, nor should we. But these multiple families sharing a residence.
Your wife would. You go home and say, Lisa, I want 10. We may be having a different discussion at that
I agree
table.
with you. You got me on that one. I'm sure she's going to agree wholeheartedly. But I think, again, we have people walking down Main Street late at night because it's not because they're doing it. It's not
their turn.
You got it. It's not their turn to sleep. And you know what? I think the major part of anytime there's an immigrant population, and this goes back centuries, is the bad actors in that population. Throughout history, bad actors have fed on their own nationalities, and that's happening. And I know that this is being addressed, but if I am fortunate enough to be elected, I can't wait to have a first formal conversation with the police chief so that maybe he can enlighten me on how we're handling those bad actors.
And again, you talk about the health department, where you have young Lenny, who's only been on the health board 20-some years.
Yeah, he's the newbie.
In a way, we're really lucky to have somebody like Tom as our chief of police, who's just got a fundamentally solid attitude. You don't see the power trip. You don't see the nonsense.
No.
You just see recommendation after recommendation that deals with the core issues.
Yeah. No, when you ask an answer, you ask a question, you get a straight answer. And that's the stuff that, I'm not privy to now that I hope I can be enlightened, because that's something that I'll know, that I'll feel better. That, you know what, no one's going to be able to round up our illegal immigrants here in Milford and send them off somewhere, regardless of how people talk or what they say. People know that's just not in the cards. But between the bad landlords, there's not a lot, but there's enough.
The 1%ers.
Yeah. And then the bad actors in each one of those immigrant groups. And we've had a few over the years that, quite honestly, the police have made sure that they got deported. And if they're not deported, they're in a jail cell.
So
and
Willie,
I just want to make sure that they're not sticking around, staying in Milford.
got a minute left.
Okay.
Why should I vote for you?
Well, again, I go back to, I think experience counts. I think the path to the Board of Selectmen over the last X amount of years has been through the school committee. I've done that, 9 years. Again, you get a wealth of experience. I think in addition to that, the last couple of years on the finance committee has really exposed me to every other part of town government. Hasn't made me an expert in every part, but it's given me bird's eye view into every department, and I think that goes a long way. On top of everything else, there's a lot of these people that I've worked with over the years, and I'll continue to work with, whether we disagree or agree on issues. And above all of that, I know how to get things done. I've done it. I have a track record. And I guess most importantly, I love this town. I want to serve it. I will not serve for 30 years, whether people kept me here or not, but I would like to serve as your next selectman.
Thank you. And as always, we thank everybody that'll step up and help our town get better. So as always, good night. May God bless. Make sure you vote, and may tomorrow be a better day than today. Thank you for joining me.
Not too long since I've been home.